days, my friends, we thought would never end. We'd swim and dance forever and a day. We'd live the life we choose and compete and never lose. Those were the days. Oh yes, those were the days.
We're here today. It's March 2010 with Harley and Helen Turnbull, two members of the Taylor's Mistake Club who competed in the 1950s and the early 60s, and they're going to tell us their story of what it was like at the Bay, and in particular in Helen's case, Helen's family, she was Lucren and they had a batch at the Bay, and she was there before even Harley made the scene. So I think we might open today with Helen just telling us a little bit about the batch life and the girls at the beach, and then we'll move back to Harley shortly, and he can tell us about the boys' side of things. So, Helen, would you like to perhaps now just talk to us a little about things?
Okay, well, way back, probably in the 1940s, my parents bought this batch on what we called Rotten Row. Quite a few of the girls ended up with their family batches along Rotten Row, and it was very popular. We had lots of people living there that were really interested in the surf life-saving movement, and you would have heard from Harry, who talked about his life there for many years. But we just had a good time. Our batch had a foxhole dug in front of it with lots of that ice plant around it, and quite often we'd just lie down and stick on what was called stinko, which was half olive oil and half vinegar, and we wiped that all over so that we could fry in the sun and get a nice tan. The boys were very lucky because they had a specially built bunkhouse. So all the girls ended up coming over to our batch, and we always tried to accommodate everybody there. Mum was very good. She didn't mind if we weren't home at lunchtime or weren't home at tea, because we'd be busy going out in the surf and having fun on the beach.
Well, Harley, you've got a few things to tell us now, Harley, about the early days. Yeah, good as gold, thanks.
Okay, all right, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the days, somewhere about 1950 onwards, 1950, say, to 1955, 54, 55. Now, a group of us joined Taylor's Mistake, and included amongst the group that joined were about 16 to 24. I've written a few names down here and I'll go through them shortly. But there was my main mate was Terps, Barry Turpin. But of course there was a good group of us, and the main ones I'll go through some of them now. Myself and Terps, Peter Stead, Peter Berry, Ross Carpenter, Ollie Picaithley, Paul Garrett, can't read the next one, but it doesn't matter. Ron and Colin Smith, Bevan Ransley, Charlie Beltrop, Tony Hobson, Ian and Otto, Ian Hunter, and Otto and John Snoop. Now, I may have missed one or two out, but that's about 20. And between 1950 and 53, we would have all got through our bronze. In addition to that, there were quite a few of the girls, including Helen. Helen got hers in 1949, 1 year ahead of myself. Now, Terps and I met up at the Tepid Bars in Christchurch, the old Teps. And following that, I think the MED was built there. This is in the early days. It was about 9. The Teps were going since the war days.
There was a Manchester Street, wasn't there?
Manchester Street, and they were heated by the MED because it was right there on the spot. And the water in the Teps, it was 33 1/3 yards. It was emptied every night. The pool had a diving pool. It was 3 metres high, but it was emptied every night, and fresh water came in the morning or early morning, and it was quite a warm pool. So we met up there and we played water polo, started to play water polo. And then we met a few others like Peter Stead and Paul Garrett, a few at the old Teps. And we decided that, Teps and I joined Boys Brigade, that's right. in Bevan Ransley, I think. We joined the Boys Brigade at the church just round the corner in Cashel Street. And we got a couple of extra guys that we met up with there. And I think one of them might have been Bevan Ransley. So we decided then that we all liked the swimming business and we'd try the beach out. Now, Turps had an uncle of his, Ollie Turpin. And the Turpins had a batch up in the hill. And because they had a batch there, Turps suggested we join Taylor's Mistake. And of course Helen was there and one or two other of the girls that we knew. So we went over to Taylor's and we met up with a guy called Graham Prattley. Graham would be 10 years older than us, 15 years old. And he was a great guy. And in due course we found out that he was a professional magician and also a professional hypnotist. And he put on shows even in the Civic Theatre and out at the AMP show. And he put on a lot of private shows for us. And I'll tell you about some of those things shortly. But anyway, I'll go on about the bay now. So we all joined up and the things we did. We went over the hill to Breezes Bay where the boat, the Breeze, is that right, Helen, the Breeze?
Yeah, it had been
sunk there, and it was a wreck, and we used to go over the hill to the Breeze, a bit of fun over there. Go into Black Rock, and there were many batches around to Black Rock in the caves, right inside the caves. And the closest one to Black Rock, and all of you people would know it, Black Rock, underneath Black Rock was a batch owned by Charlie Preble. And we went there winter and summer. We would go there most weekends, even in the winter. And we'd play mahjong. And we learned to play 500. And I can't remember whether the girls came round or not, but there was always 4 or 5, 6 of us. And some of us would sleep there at Charlie Preble's batch. And then there was the Nest. We'd spend a bit of time there. And just have fun. We were only 14, 15, 16. Never had, can't remember ever having liquor around there, ever. Then there was Boulder Bay. We'd go in there. Now, Black Rock, occasionally we'd get a huge surf, as most of you would know. You could get very big surf at Taylor's. One day we had a massive surf, huge. And Paul Garrett, he was an Australasian champion, junior. He beat all the Australasian seniors. He was a junior. He would only be 15, 16. He won at the Royal Carnival in Melbourne. It was after the Olympics. It was 1952, it would be, wasn't it?
56.
He beat the juniors and the seniors in the surf race and the belt race. And he would only be 16. And that was a marvellous occasion. But anyway, Paul jumped off at Black Rock, swam across towards Giant's Eye, straight out, and caught a wave level with Giant's Eye and Black Rock, believe it or not, and caught that wave right to the beach. And that would be a 500 to 600 metre wave. And I don't think anyone in New Zealand has caught a longer wave than that. And the guy that came and swam there later on was Dr. Dave Gerard. He also caught some of these big waves, but none of us, the others, were game enough to catch these big waves. So that's a little bit about the Black Rock. I've got Rotten Row written here, but Helen has mentioned that. There was Hobson on the other side of the hill, the bay, was Hobson's Bay. And there was a great family of the Hobson boys. They'd been there for years, and the whole family, and there was Tony Hobson, there was Hale Hobson, there was, oh goodness, how many others, Hobson's boys. Do you remember, Helen?
I don't remember them all.
No, Hale was the main one. He was sort of a club captain.
And a sister.
A sister as well, with a whole group of them. And, yeah, they had the bats in the middle of the bay. Ray Green was another one, used to stop there with them. Ross Smith, he was I think he was played for Canterbury, he won in rugby. He stopped with them quite a bit. And then on, coming round back towards the clubhouse, the Hunters had the bats there, the Morehouses. Not many people remember the Morehouses. They sold out and moved up to Picton. And there were the Turpins, Ollie Turpin's batch, which we would sometimes use. And we'd get hold of some of the girls occasionally. Remember, we were only about 15. we'd get hold of some of the girls and we'd go up to the Turpin's batch and we'd have a little woo. We'd have just a little, nothing nasty in it, just a little woo, kiss and hug. And that would be up at the Turpin's batch.
Very innocent in those days.
And we look at Nan and Bob Russell, they were down the bottom of the hill, and they would really be I suppose we'd call them almost grandma, Nan Russell and then Bob Russell, and they were like grandparents to us, like second parents. Used to look after us, and Helen's mentioned something about Nan. But they would be great, and if he wanted anything, we'd just go around to them and have a talk to them, and they were great advisors and all that sort of thing. Now, in the first year, 1950, we just got our bronze, and I think from memory it was Graham Pratley who took us through our bronze. And in those days, you had to do a six-man, know every position, and to get your bronze, there was a lot more in doing all the drill work than there was than there is today. And so Graham trained us, and we also trained at Latimer Square in Christchurch. And the reel that we used was kept at my parents' home in Latimer Square. 29 Latimer Square, it's not there now. The house is not there, or the reel. We came back from a surf do one day on one Sunday afternoon. Someone told us we're at Sumner and said there's a fire over at Taylor Estate. And a group of us, quite a lot of us, all went back to Taylor Estate, and here was the clubhouse burnt to the ground. She was burnt to the ground. That was the old clubhouse. We juniors got a bit of use out of it. Helen would have got a bit of use out of it. It was a great building, and we even used to sleep there in the first year. So it was burnt, and a lot of the gear with it was burnt. Now, yes, in the next to the clubhouse was a shed that we used to keep the canoes in and the skis and that sort of thing. They were all right. They didn't get damaged. But here's a wee story for you. One Friday night after school, Terps and I decided to go over to Taylor's Estate. So we biked over the hill, or walked over the hill, and we got over there, and I think might have been Peter Stead was there, but there was three of us from memory. And we carried the canoe out, the old canvas canoe. It was high tide, so we didn't have far to go. We carried the canvas canoe out into the surf and hopped in there was a big surf running. And we were juniors, of course, 14 years of age, and we thought we could handle anything. So we rowed this canoe, three of us rowed the canoe out to beyond the back of the waves, and we got onto one big wave and tipped it upside down. Well, we were only young, of course, and we had a hell of a job. I was stuck underneath, and someone else got a foot in my chest. We're all underneath. Anyway, we finally came in, and next minute, Hale Hobson, he was club captain at the time, he came round and he was screaming his head off because we had no approval from anyone to take the canoe out. It was far too big a surf for us to handle it. So we got a real telling off from the chief, you might say. And we learned a lesson from him. Now, seeing all our beds were burnt in the fire, we decided we needed somewhere to sleep in summer. So I had a tent. It was like an ex-army tent. And we erected that under some pine trees at the bottom of the hill. As you go down the hill between the big car park and the bottom of the road, there were two big pine trees there, and we erected the tent underneath those pine trees. It wasn't too satisfactory, but it was all right. But during the winter, it got too cold to sleep there, so we decided to build a bunkhouse. And that was built over, well, I don't know, at the beginning of the track that wanders round towards Hobson's Bay. And we built the bunkhouse, and it was about 10 or 12 beds from memory in there. And we had lots of fun. Now this is where we started to have a lot of fun with Graham Pratley. And Pratley would come over, and there was some great, what do you call them? People who would some of the people that worked with Graham would be Peter Berry, Terps quite a bit, but Peter Berry was marvellous. And Graham Pratley would come in and he said, Peter, well, he'd put Peter under, hypnotise him. And he'd put his feet on a chair and his head out the other end, and one of us would sit on him, on Peter Berry. We'd just sit on him. And he was just like a bit of concrete. You wouldn't move him. Anyway, Graham would click his fingers, Peter, wake up, wake up. And then he'd click his fingers again, go to sleep, Peter. Peter would go to sleep. And then he'd say, look, oh, there's a canary on your budgie on your shoulder. Grab hold of the budgie, Peter, and Peter would grab hold of the budgie and he'd go around here, pretty boy, and he'd really be out to it. And so I can't remember some of the others who used to do the same thing, but Peter was great. And then next minute you'd have Peter driving a fire engine, and he'd be hurling around the clubhouse and all this sort of thing, around the bunkhouse, and that was the sort of thing he did. Then he put on magic shows for us, and so forth. But that was great. Now, when it came to Christmas, we started to get timber together, old rotten timber and bushes and that sort of thing from the Sandal area, and we started to build a bonfire, and we built it out in the middle of the what was the lagoon area. Sometimes that bonfire, we could build it up to 10, 12, 15 feet in the air. Huge bonfire, even a couple of tyres. Anyway, we got the thing going about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and of course at midnight we'd have a New Year's Eve, we'd have a great show. And Bob Russell would come over with his organ, his piano accordion, and he'd play that, and it'd be singing and all that sort of thing. We'd have a great New Year's Eve. So that was another good time. It was something else. There was something important, but I've forgotten what it was. You can stop it for a minute if you want, Tiger.
All right.
Let's stop it for a minute. Okay, just away again. I just remembered a few things. But now, I mentioned earlier on, when we first joined about 1949-50, basically there were only a few of these surf guys around, and there was the likes of Harry Goldsmith, Hannafin, John Hannafin, he was a chemist, a few guys, just can't recall all the names, Young, was it Jim Young or John? Yeah, Young, and can you remember others? No, that's about. But there were about 6 seniors, and that's about all. And Graham Pratley. Now Graham Pratley was he went on to coach us. He became the club captain, and he also he got very interested in coaching the juniors and the ladies. And he sort of he formed basically I suppose it was like the second formation of the club. Because the club was almost in recession during the war years, and there was only those 4 or 5 guys and a couple of ladies that came through after the war years and did a bit of belt work and surf race and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was Ola Hobson.
Yeah, Ola Hobson was another one. Yeah, but anyway, that was a second formation of the club. Now, we used to, on a Friday night, we used to go over to Taylor's, and most of us would bike over. We had 1 or 2 people who really thought they were terrific on the bike, and Bevan Ransley, I can recall him, and he sort of held the record, but he would go down the hill flat out, and we'd go down a track, and he'd finish up, trashed up in one corner, and he was a great racer to come over the hill. But anyway, sometimes on a Friday night or Saturday night, we'd go over to the pictures at Sumner, and we'd walk over. And we'd go to the pictures, but on the way home, I can recall us 2 or 3 of us. I can't remember who it was. Might have been myself, might have been Terps, might have been Stead, or could have been any of us. We turned the gas mains off at the front of houses, because in those days there was gas running to the houses, or water mains, and of course out on the footpath the water would go into the house, or gas mains, and you turn the tap off just inside the gate or inside the fence. And that was a common thing we used to get up to. And also there was strawberry patches on top of the hill, and we raided a strawberry patch one night and left nothing. There was nothing left in their garden.
We're supposed to be promoting surf lifesaving, darling.
We had a lot of fun there, the juniors, and we were a very close-knit group. And I don't know if it's the same today, but we went everywhere together, winter and summer. And the winter, we'd hop on our bikes and we'd go out to places like Woodend, and we'd go out to Pines Beach, Coes Ford out near near the Lake Ellesmere. And I can remember one thing happening going out to Kaiapoi or Pines Beach one day. There was a lot of traffic on the road, and we decided, we'd have the public on. We'd have a crash on their bikes. So we piled all the bikes up in a heap on the side of the road, and I lay down in the middle of them, and somebody else lay down here, and Terp somewhere else, and all the cars started pulling up, thought there was a huge crash. They come flying out of their cars, and we just got up and laughed their head off. So silly things we used to do. But anyway, later on, I got my car licence at 15. I was probably one of the first to get my licence. And I was lucky enough to have an old car for a starter. And so I took a group of the juniors out, there was about 6 or 8 of us, and we used to go to Porter's Pass and on the sledges. And we made our own sledges, and we took them up to Porter's Pass. But I can recall I had a Plymouth car, and I can remember going up there, grabbing hold of all the juniors one day, all our team, and there was it's either 12 or 14 in the car. That was the number of the car. The tyres were way down, the springs were way down. It was a new Plymouth car. So we stuck together through the winter, and a lot of the guys played rugby. I tried to play rugby in the high school old boys, and that was all right until we beat another team, and they knew I didn't go to boys' high school. So that was the end. They told someone that. So I had to resign from the team. But we still followed each other around in the winter time. It was a marvellous time. And so there were some of the extra things that happened.
Listen, Harley, we'll leave you for a second now. We'll
better.
go and we'll come back shortly, and perhaps Helen's got some more things she can tell us about. Hello again, Helen.
Hello again, Jim. Yeah, I have a few things that we can continue with. In those days, teams needed to have a manager, which was great and very sensible, but we also had to have a chaperone for the ladies. And Mum was always a chaperone and Dad was the manager, and they kept their eyes on us very carefully and saw that we didn't get up to too many tricks while we were away. Of course, we'd go away, if we were going to a North Island, it might have been the New Zealand Surf Championships, we'd have to go by ferry from Littleton. But we were put always right down on sea deck. It was hot, it was horrible, and we couldn't get any fresh air. A lot of us got seasick, and we just couldn't wait to get up on deck early morning to take a few breathers and feel well again. Excuse me. Then we had these great bus trips if we were travelling north or even travelling down south to the South Island Championships. We always had a big bus, and Graham Pratley did all the entertaining and put lots of people under and had lots of fun. But the boys used to do funny things like leaning out the window and taking hats off the workmen who were working on the bridges, and we'd drop them back down the other end so that they'd be okay.
And your tyres.
Oh yes, and we'd point out the window to cars, and there was a competition to see how many cars we could stop. And of course they all waved their thanks, and we had a great time laughing it all off later. What were some of the other things
Well,
we
you
did?
stopped about 120 cars by the time we got to New
About
Plymouth.
120 cars?
Yeah,
Well, that must have been one of the most we'd ever stopped. But
But actually, Helen, if I just interrupt, it's something the juniors and the seniors, sometimes travelling to nationals would take 2 days.
Oh,
In those days, wouldn't it? Now we hop on
That's
planes
right.
and we're there in a couple of hours.
Yes.
And then 2 days there, 2 days back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'd always be looking out for other clubs' buses who were travelling up with us too. And we always used to stop off for a really nice lunch at similar places, or stop off for breakfast. When we got off the ferry, we'd travel up the coast a bit and stop at, I can't remember the name, not Opotiki. Paraparam for breakfast, and that was a big thing we looked forward to. While we were staying at the boys would always stay at a hotel, and in those days guests used to put their men.
The seniors stopped at the hotel there.
Okay.
We were often billeted sometimes
Sometimes you're
when we were younger.
But I think it was the juniors who put the who muddled up all the shoes. Guests at the hotel had put their shoes out to get polished during the evening, and they'd pick them up all nice and shiny in the morning. But this time, everyone got up and couldn't find their shoes because the boys had mixed them all up, and it took quite a long time to find them all again. Something else they did was raid the ice cream deep freezers at the hotels, and that there wouldn't be enough left the next morning because the boys had big appetites. And then one night, one of the boys went to sleep in the shower. Peter Berry, yeah, and he flooded the hotel, which was really, really, really catastrophic, especially for Dad, who was the manager of the team, because he always was responsible for all these things that happened. And another time when we were at St Clair down in Dunedin, I think it was the same guy who decided that we'd snaffle the cable car, which took us up to the top of the hill. And it was some time before the police discovered that the cable car had taken off seemingly on its own. That was a good time.
No, it was a tram. It was a tram to get down to St Clair. Yeah, it was a tram.
Oh, okay.
And it was.
Well, it was a really naughty thing to do. We don't think we.
Sounds like it was Harley that took it.
No.
I think it was probably.
It was a Pom. It was a Pom's name.
No,
anyway.
it might have been Peter Berry.
No.
Doesn't
matter.
Might have been Barry.
No.
We don't know. I don't think we sort of owned up.
Ralph Jarman.
Oh, we didn't. Didn't own up at the time.
He knew how to drive trams.
Yeah. Okay. He might have done too. But when the girls started off in the rescue and resuscitation, the 6 and the 4-man teams, we didn't have any other girls' teams to compete against, and it was quite some time before the other clubs managed to scrape up enough girls to go for their surf bronzes and compete against us. So we had to compete against the junior boys at carnivals, but we still did quite well. That was until we moved to the big surf championships, the New Zealand championships, when we'd get to compete against some of the North Island girls' teams. We always did very well because Graham Pratley was such a good coach, and I think we must have trained several times a week, and we swam just about every night when we were at school. We'd go to the Centennial Pool then and train there, and that's where Harley and I actually met, was at the Centennial Pool, and all the girls were in the Christchurch Ladies Amateur Swimming Club, and we all did our training there every night and enjoyed ourselves. But we got on quite well with the boys, and we used to have milkshakes after training down at the corner store. Mr. Jeff's corner store. Oh, those were beautiful.
Chocolate malt milkshakes.
Chocolate malt, pretty good. Yeah. Now, one of the special days we had was always Kestervan Cup Day. It was always the last carnival, and it was always at Taylor's. Usually a big sea was running, usually it was hot and sunny, and we welcomed all the other teams who dragged trailers over the hill with all their gear on. It was a fantastic day that everyone enjoyed. If it was a big sea running, you'd often get a craft damaged on the rocks that were in between Taylor's and the next bay, and they had quite a bit of trouble with people getting hurt at times. In fact, we even had a helicopter, but that was in more recent times. A helicopter had to come over from Christchurch and pick one of the guys up who was in dire straits. We always had lovely togs to wear for the march past. I can remember one lot of togs the girls had, and they were made of white sharkskin, we called it. They were beautiful togs, but that wasn't so good if you happened to be the resuscitator and you were doing the Schaefer method or the Holger Nielsen method, and you had to lean forward, you see, and all the boys would be lined up on the other side just so they could see our cleavages, which we weren't so thrilled about. And another funny thing, which we weren't so thrilled about, in the early days we had changing sheds that were attached to the clubhouse. They were a wooden sort of
It was
building.
the old clubhouse.
The old,
Susan.
the old clubhouse. And we didn't know for quite a while, but the boys had bored a little hole between their sheds and ours. And it wasn't until we heard all the giggling that we discovered what they had done.
And we got water thrown over the top at us.
Yeah, we weren't very happy about that. And yes, a lot of water was thrown over the top at them. Okay.